Today our scripture lesson comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, verses 19 through 31. Hear now the word of our God. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died, and he was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was being tormented, he looked up and he saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. He called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water to cool my tongue, for I'm in agony in these flames." But Abraham said, "Child, remember that during your lifetime you received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things. But now he's comforted here, and you are in agony. Besides all this, between you and us is a great chasm that has been fixed so that those who might want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can cross from there to us." He said, "Then, Father, I beg you to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may warn them, so that they will not also come to this place of torment." Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. They should listen to them." He said, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent." He said to them, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead." The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Well, I have a picture to show you from my vacation, I hope. This is taken in front of the summer palace of the Habsburgs of Austria. Now, it does not do justice to the summer palace. Mind you, this is not the winter palace, which is actually in Vienna. This is outside of Vienna, so that when it got hot, you didn't have to smell all the smells back in the day. But this is the summer palace of the Habsburgs. And it does not do it justice because this is the back side of the palace. And if you were looking in the same direction that Kevin and I are in this photograph, what you would see is about another acre worth of gardens. Tremendous gardens, this huge fountain. And then at the end of the gardens, there's this large hill. And built at the top of the hill then is a gazebo. And if you're willing to climb that hill, which we were not, you can see all of the palace grounds, and on the other side you can see all of Vienna. Now, it also does not do it justice because it's the back side. If you were on the front side, what you're seeing there is only a third of the palace. What you don't see is the arm that extends this way and the arm that extends that way. This is the summer palace of the Habsburgs, 1,400 plus rooms. 1,400 plus rooms. Now, most of us go Habsburgs. We don't know the Habsburgs. Turns out that there was an empress that built this palace. And she built this palace basically to show the men around her that she could. There were lots of male kings and emperors around Europe, and she was the only woman at the time. There were also lots of men in her own country who would have been more than happy to take over the throne for her. So she built this summer palace basically to say that she could. Her name was Maria Theresa. And Maria Theresa was one powerful empress. Now, you don't know Maria Theresa, you don't know most of the Habsburgs, but you know a little bit because as it turned out in this summer palace, Maria Theresa hosted she hosted lots of music concerts. But at one of those music concerts, the 6-year-old Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart played. And he was very well received by the empress and the crowd that was listening. And he was so favored that when he jumped off the piano bench, ran over to the empress, threw his arms around her and kissed her, he did not get in trouble, which nearly anybody else would have. And so Mozart actually became good friends with one of Maria Theresa's daughters, one of the princesses. You might have heard of the princess. Her name was Marie Antoinette. And Marie Antoinette went on to marry one of the French kings. And the French king and his wife Marie Antoinette, of course, lost their heads to the guillotine during the French Revolution. But for the most part, you and I don't know the Habsburgs. You know, all right, fine, it's a summer palace. Now, fortunately for Kevin and me, the tour guide was taking this picture, but the tour did not involve all 1,400 plus rooms, or I think we'd still be there. But it was interesting because towards the end of the tour guide pointed sort of down this little passageway. You know, you go on these tours of these great houses and these palaces, and they talk about the furniture, and they talk about the hangings and the paintings and the carpet and whatever else. But she pointed down this little hallway. She said, that room was added at about 1910, 1912. And Kevin and I are sort of squinting down this hallway, and it's a room that you and I would label a bathroom. And it had running water, and a commode, and a shower. And it was the only one in 1,400 plus rooms. Because one of the princesses at some point decided she wanted to modernize. Now, as it turned out, the Habsburgs were thrown out in 1914. So she got to enjoy it all of 4 years. But can you imagine those people going around basically never having a bath or a shower, maybe once or twice a year? Now, I am not going to do a poll, but I'm going to trust that the overpowering majority of us, either last night or perhaps this morning, had some sort of hot water applied to our body with a little soap. And I can assure myself of that because I can't smell you from up here. But when we look at these summer palaces and Empress Maria Theresa and Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI or King Louis XIV or King Louis whatever, or King Henry VIII of England, all of those monarchs, they had no idea of the wealth that you and I take for granted. They didn't have a hot shower every morning. That was beyond their imagination. They had no idea what it is to get up in the morning and to expect to go 30 miles without really worrying about it much. Yeah, we check the traffic to make sure we're not going to get stuck on the interstate. But all of those rulers, all of those people in the paintings, all those people in the history books, most of them go right on past us. They had no concept of being able to travel like that, much less being able to do it every day. You and I are wealthy beyond the imagination of a European monarch right up until the beginning of the 20th century. My guess is that after worship is over, well, I know some of you will come to the church conference, and I can promise snacks. It will not be a sumptuous feast. But some of you are going to skip church conference, and you're going to go out to eat somewhere, and my guess is that you will feast pretty sumptuously. And if you're still hungry tonight, you may eat again. And the concept of 3 meals a day is wealth beyond imagination. Not just for people up until the 20th century, but for a good 2/3 of the world now. You and I are wealthy beyond the imagination of those people who have come before us, and a good number of people who are alive in the world right now. Most of us have an assurance there's going to be air conditioning while we continue to have 90-degree autumn. Most of us have some way that if we need help, we call 911 with a mild assurance that somebody's going to come help. And that is wealth beyond imagination for anyone up until the 20th century and for a good portion of the world now. You and I look at palaces, 14, now, how many of you women first thought you had with 1,400 rooms? I was like, glad I don't have to clean that. Yeah. See, I don't think many of the men thought that way when I said that. But most of us think, wow, 1,400 rooms, that must have meant there were a passel of servants, all kinds of things going on. And you and I think that must have been really rich. But you and I are rich beyond the imagination of any of the Habsburgs, of any of those 18th, 19th century European rulers. It's just we've gotten used to it. Some of you have not been on Facebook this week. I know this because I put a Facebook meme on the church's page. And there were only 10 interactions with it, and half of them weren't from the church. If you're on Facebook and you haven't yet clicked like on the church's page, you really ought to go do that. But I posted a meme, and it had one of these really elegant, probably French couches. You know, not that it's going to be comfortable, but it looks good. And it had all these beautiful shoes around it. And the caption read, "No one is going to stand up at your funeral and say, 'She had a really expensive couch and great shoes.' Don't make life about stuff." Now, I posted that either on Monday or Tuesday, but it has been sticking in my brain all week long. Because it occurs to me, what if that was the only thing somebody could say at a funeral? What if the only thing you could say about somebody at a funeral was, well, she had a really expensive couch and great shoes? That's basically what Jesus is doing. Jesus is very explicit in this story. Both the rich man and the poor man Lazarus die. And so what Jesus is doing is speaking about them after their death. And what does he say about the rich man? He dressed in linen and purple and feasted sumptuously every day. Isn't that a shame that that's all Jesus had to say about him? Doesn't say how he got his wealth. Doesn't say if there was any family. Doesn't say if he did anything for his community. Did he go to temple? Did he worship in the synagogue? Did he read the scriptures every day? The only thing Jesus says about him is, well, he wore linen and purple and feasted sumptuously every day. And that begins to sound right up there with, well, she had a nice couch and great shoes. Did you also notice that Jesus does not name the rich man? We don't know what the rich man's name is. Jesus is making a statement. He's making a statement about what it is that gets done with wealth. Because it's the poor man. It's the poor man at the gate who would gladly have filled his stomach with whatever was dropping from the table. And then, did you notice this gross passage in Scripture? Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. I mean, blech. It's Lazarus who gets a name. It's Lazarus who's carried away by angels. It's Lazarus who's in Abraham's company. Jesus had an overpowering care for the poor. And he worried more about his followers' relationship with money than he did with any other single item that his followers might do. You and I are wealthy beyond the imagination even of the Habsburgs, who have a 1,400-room summer palace. But my guess is that Jesus would want us to be sure that we do not overlook Lazarus. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.